Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark's Backyard Birds. Well, beside me on the picture there, the subject of the week is the tufted titmouse. If you took part in or have watched my live I did a few weeks ago about what's your favorite bird, you'll know that the titmouse got oh, I don't know how many votes, a great a number of votes between the chickadees, which is a titmouse's cousin, and the tufted titmouse. They racked up a lot of points, and there's a reason for that. And so with that we've had someone request a species profile, tell us more about the tufted titmouse. And so that's what today's program is about: is the beautiful little tufted titmouse. Now, the titmouse is, of course, a bold, like all members of that chickadee group. Uh, they're bold. They come to feeders. They were one of the first birds to discover bird feeders when you put them out. They're very active. They bounce around in the treetops for us bird watchers out in the field. You know, they're a bird that we see and hear a lot. And especially if you're in a mixed hardwood oak woodland, they are, and I've heard say an oak dependent species, but they do definitely like nuts. And so if you're in either mixed pine and hardwood forest, or in a hardwood forest with oaks, you probably have titmice there. So and they are very energetic and they bounce around. They're very noisy. The call right off the bat, I don't even have to play a recording because it's easy to imitate, is just Peter, Peter, Peter is how the mnemonic that's been assigned to it for many, many years. And they do it a lot. And you can say they're one of the more vocal birds in the forest and in your backyard. I'm sure you've probably heard that if you have them in your area, no doubt. So this is a bird that, of course, that people who are new to bird watching, when they see them for the first time, they'll call and say, "Oh, I've got a little gray cardinal." They are smaller than cardinals. They're about the same size as a chickadee, but they do have this gray crest, which they can lay down. It doesn't have to be up all the time, but this gray crest, the gray, and so people see the crest and they automatically think cardinal, and so, but it is not. It's a bird into itself. And in this picture that Mary took, it shows that little salmon color on the sides, right there below the wings. Not all, it varies a lot. Some have a little bit of salmon, some have very little salmon on them on the sides and stuff. But that black eye, I mean, that is a really, thing, field mark, if we will, if it jumps out at you. So the tufted titmouse, let's see, we've got some more pictures here. This again, here's an example of one that doesn't have a lot of salmon color down on the side. And if you live in Texas and down south of the border, your titmouse has black, runs from the top of the bill all the way up the tip to the crest, and those are known as black crested titmice. They used to be the same species, but now they're considered their own species. So the black crested titmouse there, with the tufted titmouse here in the eastern 2/3 of the country. Now up in the mountains and out west, you have what's known as the oak titmouse and the juniper titmouse, which it used to be called plain titmouse, but they split them out. So you have those, and they're not quite as colorful as the name would dictate as the tufted titmouse. They're a more subdued gray all over, and they don't have that salmon on their side. So, and then down in the very southwestern part of the United States, they have the bridled titmouse, which is a very pretty titmouse with black markings in its face. But so the titmouse group is widespread. Many species of in Europe of the chickadee type and the titmouse type, the group of family are known as tits. That's what they're known as. So lots of species over there. And like I said earlier, they love peanuts. Without a doubt, you want to attract them to your yard. Putting out a peanut feeder, having peanuts in your food mixture will definitely attract them. They store food. I had an instance at Martha Lafitte, the nature center that I used to run, where I had a peanut feeder out, and I was watching this titmouse flying in, and he'd fly away, fly away. Well, he shouldn't have been able to do that because the peanut feeder is wire mesh, and they have to break the peanuts into small pieces to get them out. So I went out there and looked at the feeder, and sure enough, there was a piece of wire that was bent on the feeder. So he was getting whole peanuts at a time and flying off, and he was storing them somewhere in a cavity somewhere, probably in the woods, and coming back and getting another one. So I took the wire and I bent it back into place, and he came back right after I got back inside, and he went around and around and around and around the peanut feeder. His sweet spot was gone. So he had to start breaking up the peanuts again. So they do love peanuts. So that's a really good action shot there. Here's one of people are talking about bird baths, and if they don't have a bird bath, why do birds do this? This bird is covering his feathers. He's getting as wet as he can, and then he'll run his beak through them. It's called preening the feathers, and that, of course, keeping clean and keeping the feathers healthy. And then during the nesting season, titmice only nest once. They only have one brood a year, and one of the things they're famous for is lining their nest with hair. And often stealing hair from live animals. And this was taken by a customer of mine. And this is his chow that was laying on the front porch with him. And this titmouse was coming in and pulling out dead hair and taking it to his nest while the chow just sat there and slept. So they're known to do that for many mammals, even raccoons. They'll land and get a hair and fly away with them. So they're really bold little creatures, which is really, really cool. And then when they have their babies, like all young birds, they beg for food, and the parents raise them for a couple of weeks out teaching them food sources and teaching them how to hunt. This is a great example of the titmouse with his crest laid down. They don't always have their crest sticking up in the air. So I've had people call and say, well, it was a titmouse, but it didn't have his crest. And this is quite often, what's going on. And sometimes, showing your crest can be a sign of aggression. It can be a sign of territoriality or mate attraction. A lot of different reasons they do that. So a lot of times when they're in a feeding with other bird situation, they don't want to be aggressive, so they'll lay their crest down. So that may be why the crest is laying down. And then here's a baby. We can see there's just a little start of the crest there, just a little tuft on the bottom, and the tail is really short, and he's begging mom for food. So this is a fledgling tufted titmouse begging mom for food. And let's see, and then this one, I love this picture at the end. A friend of mine that took this picture, and this is staring straight at the camera with the crest down with a big old peanut in his bill. So the tufted titmouse, they do love their peanuts, no doubt about it. So they're fascinating birds, and they eat lots of insects. They're very helpful. They're a bird that does benefit from bird feeding. Their numbers have actually gone up in this country, which is great. And by providing unfrozen water for them and food, they're able to survive harsh winters, even better. So they're an example of a bird that benefits from feeder stations. So the tufted titmouse, great bird, very beneficial, very widespread in the eastern 2/3 and other parts of the country. There are other species: plain titmouse, black-crested titmouse, bridal titmouse, oak titmouse. They're just one of the most fun birds out there, and very, very popular, as our contest or program showed whenever we asked people to vote for their favorite bird. So if this isn't your favorite bird, you want me to do a program on your favorite bird, send me in a request, and we'll put something together for you. But until now, thank you for tuning in. If you would, click that like button, give us a share. If you would, share with your friends. Please subscribe. Until then, come on, let's talk birds.